Hello, Kyle. What's happening in Louisville right now?
Oh, having a good time out here, enjoying this new Christmas record from you. In fact, we're excited to have you in the area. I see that you're going to be right down the street in Frankfurt on December 18th.
I am. It's a joyful Christmas. Actually, the first time that we've ever played there, so I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to have you around here, and especially after such a cool little record here, which we can jump right into. As kind of wondering, there are a lot of course, instrumentals on here, and there are a lot of collaborations as well. But Christmas songs, especially when they're instrumental, more times than not, they seem to sort of play by a certain set of rules. And I was wondering, when you go into these, when you're writing songs like these, is it just that you say, okay, I need to write a Christmas song, or do you just play around and go, you know what, that one sounds Christmas, I'll save it for that record?
Well, I mean, there are so many great hymns and carols and melodies of Christmas, but when you play them on the piano, at least in my particular style as a songwriter, I can kind of infuse a lot of my own character into the song, and so it becomes familiar sounding. And the melody, of course, is something that you've heard per se, but many times it's not literal, so it's a little bit more permission to be more creative with these melodies. And so I take the hymns and carols and do my versions of them as instrumentals, and then a lot of original holiday songs that are featured duet partners who are amazing. The last record, Johnny Mathis and Kenny Rogers, and these people who are, especially somebody like Johnny, who's like Mr. Christmas. And then on this album, probably the most eclectic mix of people that I've ever had on an album. Pop songs from Five for Fighting on the same album as Dick Van Dyke and Jane Lynch, and Broadway star Leslie Odom.
Yeah, I would think as an artist, which I am not a musician, maybe a failed musician, but I always thought that if I could have done one thing, it would have to write the classic Christmas song, because then you don't have to do anything else ever again if you don't want to. Those royalties will come around every year forever. Is it even worth thinking like, oh man, I could write the classic Christmas song. I could write the one that keeps coming around.
Well, what's interesting about that. So, part of the reason that I've ended up doing, I think, so much holiday music is that my first album for Christmas was called The Gift, and had a song on it called The Gift that was an original that has become one that plays every year as sort of a standard. But what I think is unique about it is that first off, you don't know you're writing it when it's happening. So I don't think I'm pretty sure that Mel Torme, when he was doing Christmas song, they didn't think, oh, this is going to be around for hundreds of years. So you never know when you're writing it. But the song "The Gift," the distinction about, I think, why it became popular is because it's not about Christmas. It's a love song that takes place during Christmas time. So it's not about Santa down the chimney or presents under the tree or the meaning of Christmas. It's about people. And when you write about people and romance and the gifts that they give each other that are not the material things, then that's, I think, what made that song so popular. And so I always remember that when you write about people at Christmas instead of necessarily the snow falling and the presents, then that's when people really connect.
Yeah, I can echo that. I mean, those are always been my favorite ones. The unobvious ones, Joni's "The River," is a really popular version of that right there. Which, with that sort of sound and song in mind there, with this called A Joyful Christmas, that sort of spells it out what we're looking at for. I mean, joyful sort of makes a point that you're not going to get something quite as sad and blue as The River this time around.
Well, the other job, I think, of a songwriter is to reflect what goes on in the world at any particular time. If you look at any album content by any songwriter or really talented performer, for the most part, what they're doing is feel and tone of the way people are, in that moment in time. And so I feel like what so many people are yearning for is hope and promise and joy, and to me, I've always wanted my music to be that. I have no breakup songs. I don't have any self-loathing angry songs. I really feel like music as I represent it should be something that leaves you with a good feeling, an inspirational feeling. And so I feel like Joyful Christmas represents the antidote to the chaos that's going on in the world and escape from it.
Right, right. And having some of these guests on here, too. You'd mentioned earlier with Dick Van Dyke and Jane Lynch, and maybe among all of them, that's sort of the most curious right there. Like, how did they end up on this record?
I know it. Well, really, this album came out of a TV special that I've produced that as actually it's going to be on in Louisville during Christmas time. So we'll let your listeners know about that. But it is it's called A Joyful Christmas, and so it started out actually as a TV special that was hastened back to a lot of the nostalgic Christmas specials of the 60s and 70s, a lot of the Andy Williams, and I always wanted to do one of those and have a variety show. And so I was actress Jane Lynch joins me, and I know her, and she has been on my radio show a number of times. And so I said, "Do you want to do this TV special?" And she goes, "Yeah, and it could be like the Carol Burnett show, or it could be like this very nostalgic kind of thing." And I said, wouldn't it be amazing if we had guest stars and then all of a sudden Dick Van Dyke showed up? Wouldn't that be, who would you want to be? And she goes, "Let's call him." I mean, it was unbelievable. And he's like, "Yes, I'll do it." And it was really shocking in an amazingly wonderful way.
What you get from just asking. That's all you got to do is ask.
That's right. Amazing. That's right. It just goes to show you, I mean, the worst that somebody can say is no, as far as I'm concerned. And if they do, you can ask again the next time.
Yeah. And when you're working with them, I mean, do you give them guidance on the songs? Do you write the lyrics yourself? How does that work out? I
co-write most of the time, but I'm what's called kind of a high concept songwriter. So I think it became that way because I was a jingle writer for many years. I wrote songs for commercials for kitty litter and toilet bowl cleaner and soda pop and all kinds of jingles, and that really was my career. I didn't have any designs on becoming a recording artist, and so I think in a very high concept way. So usually I come up with the idea, the title, the concept. I write a lot of the lyrics and music, and then I'll collaborate with a amazing co-writer or poet that I feel like can really enhance what I've started.
And you keep pumping them out too. I mean, 3 releases this year, 3 last year. I don't know what 2018 has in store for you, but I'd love to see you break that record.
Well, I mean, I just play, and it comes very naturally to me, so it doesn't feel that much like work. And the other thing about my albums is that, the simplicity of them. When you're doing albums like this and it's solo piano, a lot of times it's simply my performing. You're not talking about, bands and singers and background vocalists and mixing, and, it's a very different approach. And so it makes it easier to be more prolific.
Well, we will see you in Frankfurt December 18th. And again, thank you for this record, A Joyful Christmas. And we'll look forward to seeing the TV special as well, Jim.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We'll probably be back in Louisville next year, so I look forward to being back at the Palace. It is always a great time to be there. Thank you.
Awesome. Give us a shout. We'll see you around.
Thank you.
All right, bye.